Welcome back to the Paranormal State, Washington, and UFO UAP. With Makāula Nakae, a lifelong experiencer and ET contactee since 1990. Today's episode, 1987 Seattle Ley-Line Project, Earth Sanctuary on Whidbey Island. Urban Geobiology, Subsurface Geophysics, and Sacred Architecture of the Pacific Northwest, the Seattle Ley-Line Project, 1987, and Urban Geobiology. Washington State occupies a fascinating chapter in modern esoteric history, largely due to the Seattle Ley-Line Project of 1987. Spearheaded by an artist collaborative called the Geo Group, led by environmental artist and author Chuck Pettis, and backed by official funding from the Seattle Arts Commission. This project stands out as a rare instance where municipal support intersected directly with the practice of urban dowsing and earth energy mapping. While ley-line mapping had long been popular in rural England and isolated esoteric communities, the Seattle project broke new ground. It marked arguably the first time a major metropolitan area in the United States attempted to officially survey, map, and document an urban energy grid. The Geo Group utilized traditional dowsing rods, pendulum divining, and geographical surveys to trace presumed underground water veins, geological fault fractures, and electromagnetic alignments crisscrossing the city's topography, treating Seattle as a living canvas overlaying a hidden natural energy circuit. The 1987 survey pinpointed specific geographical intersections and power centers within public parks. Washington Park Arboretum, identified as a major node due to its dense living botanical collections, rolling glacial topography, and extensive hydrological features. Interlochen Park and Roanoke Park, mapped as significant focal points where underground water streams intersected with localized geomagnetic currents across heavily forested, ravine-cut terrain. The project resulted in published maps and guided walks, encouraging urban residents to view their everyday city environments through a geobiological lens, recognizing that urban parks often function as modern equivalents of ancient sacred groves. Continuing his pioneering work in urban geobiology, Chuck Pettis established Earth Sanctuary on Whidbey Island. Spanning 72 acres of protected nature reserve, sculpture garden, and retreat center, this property represents a fully realized physical landscape laboratory explicitly designed around sacred geometry, earth energies, and the intersection of consciousness with the environment. Before any architectural elements were introduced, extensive ecological restoration work rehabilitated second-growth temperate rainforests, pristine wetlands, ponds, and wildlife habitats. In geobiological traditions, disturbed land holds chaotic or stagnant energetic fields. Restoring the ecosystem establishes a coherent biological and energetic baseline, creating a pristine container where subtle earth energies can flow without artificial interference. Pettis strategically placed a diverse array of ancient architectural archetypes directly over geobiological nodes to act as macro-scale transducers. The megalith dolmen, modeled after ancient European megalithic structures, this heavy stone installation acts as an earth capacitor. Constructed from dense igneous or metamorphic rock, it concentrates subtle telluric currents running through the ground, creating a localized geomagnetic focal point that deepens meditation and grounding. The Buddhist stupa. Representing the enlightened mind and cosmic order, the stupa serves as an architectural mandala. Filled with sacred relics and geometric alignments, it acts as an energetic tuning fork, channeling ambient ions to radiate spiritual harmony and balance the surrounding environment's subtle fields. Stone labyrinths and medicine wheels. Drawing from European unicursal labyrinths and indigenous medicine wheel geometries, these ground alignments provide physical pathways for walking meditation. Pacing a deliberate geometric path engages a mind-body feedback loop, helping visitors quiet the rational mind, align with natural rhythms, and achieve deep alpha and theta brainwave states. The operational foundation of Earth Sanctuary relies on an intimate synthesis of post-glacial geology, subterranean hydrology, and microelectromagnetism. Rather than viewing the landscape as a uniform physical platform, geobiological analysis reveals that the sanctuary sits atop an active, naturally occurring subterranean circuit. During the Pleistocene epoch, specifically the Vashon Stott of the Fraser Glaciation, massive continental ice sheets deposited complex layers of glacial till, a heterogeneous mix of compacted clays, silts, sands, gravels, and erratic boulders. This varied stratigraphy creates a patchwork of contrasting electrical resistance, moisture retention, and mineral density, establishing microvoltages and natural electrical gradients across the forest floor. Whidbey Island's underlying geology features productive aquifers trapped within porous sand and gravel layers sandwiched between dense glacial clays. As pressurized ionic groundwater moves continuously through narrow subterranean mineral channels, friction against quartz and silicate surfaces generates streaming potentials, transforming underground streams into living, subterranean electrical circuits that pulse quietly beneath the forest floor. Glacial outwash and bedrock are invariably laced with quartz grains and mineral veins. Under constant mechanical microstrain from earth tides, regional tectonic shifts, thermal expansion, and root pressure, quartz crystals act as natural transducers, converting physical pressure waves into stable alternating electrical charges that radiate outward into the surrounding matrix. At an intersecting telluric node where underground hydrological flows cross geomagnetic fault lines or energetic grid lines, galvanic soil potentials, streaming potentials, and piezoelectric charges undergo systemic coupling into a coherent, localized electromagnetic signature. Entering this finely tuned subterranean circuit provides a stable, resonant environmental baseline that facilitates profound neurological relaxation and brainwave entrainment. Alternative geobiologists, esoteric researchers, and traditional knowledge keepers view the broader Pacific Northwest (PNW) landscape as a profound macro-level energetic node forged by cataclysmic glacial epochs, active volcanism, and immense hydrological networks. Anchored by towering stratovolcanoes such as Mount Rainier, Tacoma, Mount Street, Helens, Latla, and Mount Adams, Pato, the Cascade Range represents one of North America's most potent macro-level energetic engines. These peaks act as massive, high-wattage telluric capacitors, natural energetic obelisks, or antennas that interface the subterranean heat and pressure of the Earth's mantle directly with the atmosphere and ionosphere. The geological composition of the Cascade volcanoes is dominated by crystalline and semicrystalline volcanic rocks, basalt, dacite, and andesite, rich in silicates and quartz. Under constant tectonic stress along the Cascadia subduction zone, immense pressure generates natural piezoelectricity, converting mechanical earth pressure into electrical charges that turn the volcanic axes into functioning planetary power stations. In Washington State, topography gives rise to complex hydrological networks, turning the landscape into a vast interconnected hydraulic circuit. Major systems like the Columbia River and the Puget Sound Fjord network act as fluid meridians. Glacial-fed rivers rushing down the high-altitude volcanic capacitors function as conductive conduits, carrying telluric charges, mineral ions, and acoustic vibrations across vast distances until they discharge into the marine energy and salt currents of the Pacific Ocean. Long before modern urban dowsers mapped Seattle's ley lines, our alternative geobiologists calculated the piezoelectric properties of the Cascade volcanoes. The indigenous nations of the Pacific Northwest, including the Coast Salish, Yakima, Puyallup, and Quinault, understood these landscapes through a profound, enduring framework of living animism and sacred cosmology. In indigenous oral traditions, massive geographic landmarks are not inanimate heaps of rock and ice. They are living, sentient entities endowed with volition, history, and spiritual agency. Towering stratovolcanoes like Mount Rainier, Tacoma or Tahoma, and Mount Adams, Pato occupy central roles in creation epics, revered as ancestral guardians, teachers, and powerful intercessors between the human realm and the sky world. Modern alternative Earth energy research reveals a striking convergence. The specific geological power nodes and telluric corridors identified by geobiologists overlap almost perfectly with ancient indigenous sacred sites, winter dancing grounds, and vision quest summits. The deep glacial waters, roaring river networks, subterranean heat, and towering atmospheric peaks are understood as intersecting pathways of sacred power, marking the Pacific Northwest as a primary energetic theater where earth, water, and sky dynamically converge. The Seattle Ley-Line Project of 1987 ultimately culminated in both a historic piece of municipal public art and the foundational conceptual blueprint for what later became Earth Sanctuary on Whidbey Island. Specifically, the project resulted in the following outcomes and legacy. Commissioned and funded by the Seattle Arts Commission through a $5,000 grant to the Geo Group, Chuck Pettis and his collaborators spent over 3 months dowsing a massive 4 by 8 foot road map of Seattle using a brass pendulum. They successfully identified and mapped 60 ley lines and 44 power centers within city limits. The resulting artwork, consisting of an infrared aerial photograph overlaid with white lines representing ley lines and quartz crystals marking power centers, was enclosed in a wooden squared circle case. Designated as part of the Seattle Arts Commission's, now Seattle City Lights, portable works collection, the map became an official piece of civic art, securing Seattle's place as perhaps the first major metropolitan area in the U.S. to officially survey and map its alleged urban earth energy grid. While the 1987 project mapped invisible energy grids onto an existing urban environment, it directly inspired Chuck Pettis to seek out a physical canvas where these concepts could be fully built out. This urban mapping effort served as the ideological predecessor for Earth Sanctuary on Whidbey Island. Pettis took the dowsing and geobiological principles pioneered in Seattle and applied them to the sprawling, protected 72-acre forest and sculpture garden. Rather than just drawing lines on a map, the project's completion evolved into physical, interactive landscape architecture, anchoring megalith dolmens, stupas, stone labyrinths, medicine wheels, and driftwood ley line markers directly over real-world Whidbey Island geobiological nodes and water veins. Ultimately, the 1987 project ended up transitioning from a controversial, avant-garde municipal art experiment into a permanent historical artifact, and directly seeded the creation of one of the Pacific Northwest's premier outdoor retreats for geobiology and sacred geometry. In mid-2026, T is fully sustained and actively operational. Earth Sanctuary on Whidbey Island remains an active, preserved 72-acre nature reserve, sculpture garden, and retreat center. The sanctuary is open to the public daily during daylight hours for individual reflection, walking the stone labyrinths, visiting the stupa, and experiencing the megalith dolmen. Chuck Pettis continues to manage the property under a 500-year master plan dedicated to restoring the woodlands, wetlands, and ponds into a diverse, mature old-growth ecosystem. The infrastructure is actively sustained, including the on-site retreat center used for overnight and group meditation stays, alongside ongoing publications documenting sacred space design. When examining unidentified anomalous phenomena, UAP, and reports of the paranormal on Whidbey Island, Washington, a responsible inquiry requires a careful separation of documented archival data and military reality from speculative folklore. Grounded strictly in historical fact, public reporting databases, and regional documentation, the profile of Whidbey Island reveals a fascinating intersection of civilian observation, national defense infrastructure, and localized oral history. The foundation of the island's modern anomaly record rests within civilian reporting databases such as the National UFO Reporting Center, NUFORC, and the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON. Whidbey Island and the surrounding waters of Island County possess a steady historical baseline of citizen-submitted sightings spanning from the late 20th century to the present day. Local logs consistently describe nocturnal lights, silent glowing orange or white orbs, and stationary luminous objects hovering over the Puget Sound, Oak Harbor, and the adjacent airspace. These archives include files investigated by field researchers, comprising both civilian accounts logged during national sighting waves and testimonies from former military personnel stationed in the region. However, any objective analysis of Whidbey Island's airspace must account for its unique operational military context. The island is home to Naval Air Station, Whidbey Island, NASWI, headquartered near Oak Harbor. Established decades ago, NASWI serves as a primary electronic warfare and training hub for the United States Navy, operating advanced aircraft such as the EA-18G Growler. Because Whidbey Island sits directly beneath active military operating areas, commercial flight lanes, and tactical training corridors, a significant portion of local aerial reports inevitably intersect with high-performance military flight tests, classified training maneuvers, and routine aerospace traffic. While the U.S. Department of Defense and agencies like the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, ARO, have officially acknowledged military pilot encounters with UAPs nationwide. Specific public disclosures directly tied to NASWI airspace remain limited, with most local military-adjacent observations attributed to routine defense operations or classified aerospace testing. Beyond the skies, the landscape of terrestrial paranormal and ghost lore on Whidbey Island presents a much quieter picture. Unlike regions characterized by heavily documented, state-investigated hauntings or protected historical battlefields, Whidbey Island does not possess formal, scientifically verified paranormal archives or municipal ghost legislation. Local historical societies and Pacific Northwest folklore collections do note occasional localized ghost stories tied to older pioneer homesteads, historic lighthouses, and early 20th century maritime incidents across the Puget Sound. Nevertheless, these accounts remain strictly within the domain of regional oral history and local culture, rather than empirical or officially validated paranormal tracking. Ultimately, Whidbey Island stands as a microcosm of modern anomaly research. It balances a legitimate documented history of civilian UAP, reporting against the undeniable footprint of high-tech naval aviation, all while maintaining the quiet, subtle charm of regional Pacific Northwest folklore. To be continued. Watch and listen. Watch the cinematic video trailer. Listen to the full podcast now. Explore the archive Cosmic Awakening Volume 1, 1991, Peru, Journey into the Unknown. Sacred Valley of the Incas. Volume 2, Ascension 2012, The Golden Alchemy. Part 3, The First Contact and the Paranormal State. Join the journey. New episodes drop periodically. Each chapter delivers a tight, hyper-focused 10 to 30-minute exploration into the evolution of ufology, perfect for your daily plunge into decoding hidden messages from outer space, designed to raise awareness and foster human evolution. Subscribe to support your inner development. Thumbs up to help push our channel through the algorithm. Comment below. Share your thoughts on today's episode.